Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and I am the creator of this podcast. I'm also the founder of the Feely Human Collective, where we collectively grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional curiosity. This is episode 222 on Wil Wheaton is still just a geek, and a Feely Human too. So I loved this conversation with Wil Wheaton. Funny story, I first emailed his team in January 2019, and we recorded a couple weeks back, and it finally happened. So I don't know if that's just persistence or me being a pest or the fact that Wil has a new book out. I think it's all of the above, and I was just so grateful to have him on the show. Wil is absolutely a Feely Human, and his book, Still Just a Geek, is really a beautiful... I called it the inception of inner child work, if you know that movie reference, but it's a really beautiful, compassionate, empathetic look back at the past versions of ourselves, and in this case, Wil's past versions of himself, and it's really beautiful. I highly recommend you pick up a copy for yourself. I have links in the show notes at feelyhuman.co. The audiobook is amazing. Wil had even said in our conversation that writing the book wasn't the thing that was healing for him. It was like truly narrating the audiobook, and you'll see why when you pick it up. Please do so. It's wonderful. It's amazing, and so is Wil. And in this conversation, we talk about how being a geek intersects with empathy. We talk about Wil's own childhood trauma with the mother that treated him as a commodity and a father who simply didn't care. We talk about being the person we need in the world, and of course, we dig deep into Still Just a Geek. We also talk about The Secret of NIMH, Star Trek, capitalism, all sorts of things. Really, really beautiful conversation, and I'm so grateful to Wil for it. So I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to the episode, though, wanted to remind you that we're 1 week into the Dear Childhood Me journal launch pre-sale. If you go to dearchildhoodme.com, you can check it out. I'm very excited about it. Thank you to all of you who have already purchased your copy. But if you haven't, please check out dearchildhoodme.com. This is a thing that I've been working on for the past year or so, and it's finally out in the world. I'm doing a limited sale release that ends on May 4th, and it won't be available after that. So pick it up, please. It's something that means a lot to me. I think it will mean a lot to you as well. Go to dearchildhoodme.com. Again, it ends on May 4th. So dearchildhoodme.com. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, so I wanted to shout out a podcast I truly, really love and enjoy and have for many, many years. And it's called the Allison Rosen Is Your New Best Friend podcast. So Allison Rosen was a previous guest of this show. We talked about grief and other feely things. She is wonderful and just she's a feely human like you and I, and she's silly and funny and so thoughtful, and I just love her show. She does Monday episodes where she deep dives with a guest, and then she has Thursday episodes, which I think are my favorite, where they dig deep into all sorts of silly things like food and farts and butts and, poops and, insects in the shower and all sorts of fun stuff. Truly, though, I really mean it. It's a podcast that I listen to every week without fail. It's a beautiful podcast. It's a needed podcast when the world feels like a lot and heavy and overwhelming. It's a show that brings me joy and makes me laugh all the time. So give it a subscribe. If you aren't familiar with Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend, the podcast, give it a subscribe. Go to Apple, subscribe now, or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's wonderful. I'll make sure to include a link in the show notes as well to Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. It's going to be your new favorite podcast. So just wanted to shout Allison out for that. And the last thing I'll say is please leave a rating and review for this podcast, You Me Empathy, wherever you listen to the podcast. It does truly help out the show. Go to dearchildhoodme.com, order your inner child journal, and enjoy this conversation with the luminous, wonderful, feely human that is Wil Wheaton. Enjoy.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You Me Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You Me Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm still just a feely human, elated and filled with gratitude to be here with actor, writer, tabletop gamer, dog lover, author of the new book, Still Just a Geek, and a person like you and me who innately deserves to be seen and heard and loved. It's Wil Wheaton. Hello, Wil.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, so happy to have you. It's been a long journey to here, and you're here, and I couldn't be more excited.
Awesome.
So, Wil Wheaton, we always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling well. Thank you for asking. I'm a little overwhelmed with what I have to do this week. I'm at a moment in my life where I'm switching gears dramatically, creatively and professionally, from narrating other people's audiobooks to narrating my own audiobook, which was far more emotional than I ever had anticipated. And now, like kind of starting today, for the next 3 or so weeks at least, I am going to be full-time the president, CEO, and only product sold by Wil Wheaton Incorporated. And that is a weird thing that I have to do. I understand it. I respect it. The measures that we use to determine whether or not it is successful don't particularly matter to me in an emotional sense like they once did. Mm-hmm. This is significant emotional growth for me of just a couple of years ago. I hope it does well because I think it's got stuff in it that is hopefully helpful and relatable for people. And also, if this sells well, I get to do another one. And that's kind of like, I'm already thinking about the next one. So that's where I am. Thank you for asking. Let me ask you how you are today.
I would be honored to answer that. Well, today, actually, I left my day job.
Oh,
So it's like
that's
I'm
a big
feeling
thing,
like
man.
big nerves and big adrenaline and like
Yeah.
anxiety and hope and sadness and like a mixture of emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
big, weird
I
day.
can relate. I think I can relate. I can relate to that in memory because I've had that like, oh man, that job is over. The like security of it and kind of like the predictability of it is over.
Yeah.
But and what's just outside the door might be really, really, really cool. I just don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, boy, can I relate to that feeling.
I appreciate that empathy. Yeah, it's weird and it's exciting and it might kick my ass to push into more uncomfortable areas that could lead to some growth that I'm excited about. And thankfully my partner is a tenured professor, so I have like a stable income in the house,
Great.
which is great. So that feels good.
That's awesome.
So your book, Still Just a Geek, comes out the day after this episode releases. Listeners, FYI, order it pronto. So I was reading it, and what I was struck by, well, first of all, I just need to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry you were treated the way that you did.
Thank you
It's
so
not fair. It feels like a perversion of nature, and I
does.
empathize deeply.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard. And the other thing that really struck me about it it's so profound in this way is it's a beautiful, you're reflecting on your past self. You're reflecting on a way in your past, your childhood self, your teenage self, your Star Trek self, your reflection on past versions of yourself, which is, I mean, that's inner child work. That's like deep,
It really
reflective self-compassion. It's beautiful. That's not a question. That's just a thought.
Well, the thing is that I had to confront and accept the reality that the people who are my parents, just by the way the creation of human beings works, are not good people.
Yeah.
And the man who was my father, I don't know if he ever did love me. He may have at one time, but he really went out of his way to make sure that I knew how much he didn't like me. Yeah. And my mother just kind of used me to chase her dreams and her to fill up a space in herself that wasn't being filled for one reason or another. And I begged and begged and begged and begged from the time I was 7 years old. I can so clearly remember it. Please let me be a kid. I don't want to do this. Just stop making me be an actor. I just want to do stuff with dad. Why doesn't dad want to do things with me? And all of that. And I spent my entire life feeling like I was not seen. I was not heard. I had very little agency at all in the direction of my life. And after years of trying to enlist the participation of my parents in the healing of that so that we could move forward with a healthy and nurturing and loving relationship, I had to accept that that was never going to happen because they weren't willing to participate in it. They weren't willing to own their roles in my trauma.
Yeah.
And this book has, in a really unexpected way, allowed 49-year-old me to reach back kind of through time to the 18-year-old me that the 28-year-old me is talking about in Just a Geek, and have love and compassion and empathy for both of them. And then see how I, as an almost 50-year-old father and husband, have changed from the almost 30-year-old husband and stepfather I was when I wrote that book.
It's like the inception of inner child work, I would say, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I haven't really thought of it in those terms at all, but I have spent so many hours, so many long late nights alone in this very room with just a notebook and a pencil, just writing down everything I can remember feeling at different stages of my life and then reading it back and responding to it the way I needed to be treated when I was that kid. Wow. So that I can now be the dad, the big brother, the boss, the teacher, the mentor. I'm working really hard to be for myself now, and for like the memory of myself, the person that I always need in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're giving yourself. I think what's so beautiful about it is, I mean, I grew up in an environment that was unsafe and violent, and the sort of looking back and reflecting that I've done in my life and my mental health journey has been to sort of like create a soft container, a safe container of love, unconditional love, right? Yeah. So like what you described is not, you're dealing with some conditional forms of love, if you can even call it love, right?
Yeah.
And what is so universally needed is children being unconditionally seen and heard and loved. And so when we can, as adults, look back and have the insight, have the curiosity enough to look back and give ourselves all of the things that we ever wanted, right, needed and loved. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm wondering how that work and in writing this book, how that has impacted in the way that you show up in your relationships, for your kids, things like that.
It's always been very important to me that I be the very best dad I can be to my kids. When they were young and I was their stepdad, it was very important to me that I not impose what I wanted into their lives and what I hoped our relationship would eventually become before they were ready to do that with the relationship, if they ever were. Mm-hmm. I love them absolutely no matter what, and no matter what they do, and whether or not I was called their dad or whether or not I was, in the eyes of the law, their dad, didn't matter to me at all. I was emotionally the person that I never had, and I really wanted to be that person for them. And I also knew that their biological dad was just garbage and was really hurting them at every opportunity in an effort to hurt and disrupt their mom and me. Mm. And I remember saying to him, everything you're doing is only hurting the kids. Yeah. It's like frustrating and annoying to us. Like, congratulations, good job, you disrupted our life, but you're really hurting your kids in a way that is going to come back on you in a way you don't want it to. Mm. He wouldn't listen to me. And over time, I just kind of decided, man, there's just like not a lot I can do about this guy. And there's not a lot that I can do about what happens outside of my house. So I'm just going to be the best that I can be when I have the opportunity to be that person. Mm. And what helps me show up is the promise I made to myself to do my best to be the person I need in the world. Mm. I don't always get there. And I think that's a real important part of having compassion for ourselves. Yeah. I think it's really important that we do the best we can do all the time in everything, but we also have to give ourselves permission to have a best that varies from day to day and varies according to circumstance. And totally. Now that our kids are grown and out of the house, and it's my wife and me in our house, and we've, for the last 2 years, haven't really gone anywhere. And we've been like kind of around each other all the time, every day. And we're doing our own things and having our own kind of like spaces in the house and all that stuff. But every day I'm like, listen, I just want to check in with you. I feel like I'm not like really being a super present husband at the moment because I'm working on all this stuff in my head. And I'm really like kind of, yep. I'm like, I feel very, very distracted. Yeah. And if you are feeling that from me, I want to acknowledge it and like just be available for you now. And every time I say that, my wife says some version of, I appreciate it. You're here. You are showing up. You just don't realize it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not, please let me know. Mm-hmm. And then as far as it goes with my kids, before I ended contact with my parents, the man who was my father had not made an effort to contact me on his own for close to 4 years. He had called me one time, and it was to yell at me about a thing that had nothing to do with him that I had written online that he misinterpreted and decided was about him. And I remember saying at that time, I was very excited when I saw your name on my phone because you never call me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love it if you would call me just to like see what's going on. And he said, well, phones work both ways.
Sure.
And I was like, yep, they sure do. And thank you for telling me everything I need to know about you. I text my kids too much. I'm like, I just wanted you to know I was thinking about you and I love you. And I really miss you both. They both live out of state. And I do. I miss them all the time. And I got those messages from my mom, but they were always manipulative and needy. It was always like, call me, check on me, perform for me, validate me. And I've made it really clear to my kids, look, like, I don't know how it is when you have a healthy relationship with your parents when you're the kid, because I don't.
Yep.
All I know is what I wished my parents had done for me and been for me. And I'm doing my best to be that for you guys. And both of my kids are like, you worry about this stuff. It's fine. I love you. Thank you for checking in with me.
That's sweet.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So I guess a very short way of answering your question is like, I just think about all the things that I felt growing up and living through. And then I do everything I possibly can to not inflict those feelings on another person.
I mean, that's how cycles are broken. That's how generational trauma is dismantled, right? It feels like the way you describe it, it like fills my heart because it feels like your love for your kids and the way that you love your kids or your partner is an act of resistance. It's like an act of, it's like a fuck you in a way, right? It's like, look,
well, it's defiant.
It's defiant, right?
Defiant. It's absolutely defiant. And in Just a Geek, and then this comes out again in the annotation half of Still Just a Geek. I was in the middle of us fighting for the very existence of our family when I wrote that book. And not just in the sense that like we had to stay together as a family because my wife's ex-husband was constantly assaulting us, not physically assaulting us, but was just he was annoying us. He was targeting us all the time. He was harassing and disrupting our lives all the time.
Yeah.
I was struggling with my career and my career identity and my human identity. A huge part of Just a Geek is that I was carrying all the baggage of like, oh, the biggest thing in my life is I'm the kid who used to be on Star Trek. And the truth is, that's not who I was then. It was a big part of my identity, but it was a big part of my identity because it had been imposed on me.
Right.
And when I look at that time in my life now, and I see how hard we were fighting for what was really important and what I really cared about, which was being the best husband and the best father I could be. I wanted to have all the wonderful family memories and family experiences that I never got to have. And I really, really did my best. And I can see as I'm looking through this stuff now, 20 years later, we did a really good job, all of us. It was not easy for any of us. And I'm extremely close with my kids. And we've had conversations. I've taken responsibility for times when we were all younger and I didn't know any better and I said or did hurtful things. And it's, as far as I can tell, it's all okay, now.
Yeah.
And the kids all the time are like, you did your absolute best. And my older son is just like, I cannot even imagine I don't want a different dad. So it just makes me feel like it just makes me feel really good. And it makes me feel really happy. And that we have broken that generational cycle.
That's
especially
beautiful.
when I look at the despicable racist my grandmother was. And I see that she treated me the same way my dad treated me. And like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I will not do this.
I love that. And what is interesting about a lot of this is like, there comes a point in our lives where we have to see people for who they are. We have to believe how they're acting and eventually decide and ultimately realize that they are acting in a way that is not conducive to a relationship here or whatever it may be, right? We have to believe the words that they are saying And you having to sort of realize that with parents is like, that's probably the hardest thing to do, right? Is realizing that your parents aren't for you, right? They aren't part of your life. They aren't your family in the way that family should be, right? And that's grief. That's pretty grief laden.
Oh,
That's hard.
so much grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have spent so I reached out to my folks and just kind of like laid it all out. And they're the kind of narcissists that you can't talk to on the phone. You have to put everything in writing because they lie about everything. They deflect, they distort. It all has to be so I can say, no, this is what I said. Look, it's right here. So I wrote out a very long letter to both of them. It took me a very, very, very long time to write. I worked really hard to not be accusatory or blaming or judgmental. I essentially said, like, I just feel like my dad doesn't love me and it hurts all the time and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
My mom did not reply to me for 4 months. My dad did not reply to me for 6 months. When my dad finally replied, when my mom replied to me, it was exactly what I had come to expect. You did this, you said that, you're doing, it was all these you statements,
Yep.
And with my dad, it was, your mother wants me to email you. Like that was the subject of the email. And I was like, I didn't even open the email. I just deleted it.
Yeah.
And I just sent a note back to both of them that said, essentially, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. And goodbye.
I see now. Yeah.
And like, I wanted us to heal together. You are not capable of doing that. And I'm not going to live my life in pain anymore. I'm giving it all back.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And that started a process. It's been 4 years. It's only in the last couple of months that I feel any degree of, I don't know, resolution, acceptance, the removal of like an endless slow drip of very hot water on my skin that I kind of get used to for a while, but then I'm like, God, that's hot and it hurts.
Yeah.
And like, and interestingly enough, the thing that really made all that happen was not writing this book. It was narrating the audiobook. When I wrote the book, at the end of the book, in the afterword for Still Just a Geek, when I wrote it, I said, like, listen, I want to tell you, because I'm a writer, that this has a great happy ending. Everything's all wrapped up. It's great. I'm kicking ass. My career's better than it's ever been. I'm successful by every objective measure. I'm so happy. Everything is amazing. The truth is, working on this just re-traumatized me. Just brought it all back up. And I don't feel better at all. In fact, I feel terrified now. Because as the child of an abusive household, we are taught to protect the abusers. And we work unbelievably hard to hide what's really going on in our lives. And as I have talked about this, when I get to this point in my story, I always stop for a second and I want to speak directly to everyone in the audience who is painfully or sadly nodding along right now, having the memory of, yeah, I worked really, really hard to keep the person who hurt me safe because I was so afraid. I was a very good actor, and the best acting I ever did in my life was not on camera. It was all in the presence of other people when I felt awful or I was scared or I was hurting or whatever was going on.
Yep.
When I got to the audio version of this and I started doing it, I spoke. The me who wrote Still Just a Geek is 48, 49 years old. Mm-hmm. Looking back on this stuff and sort of like saying, this is how I feel now. And this is how I respond to it. And in the beginning, I was impatient with myself. I was embarrassed by myself. I was annoyed by myself. I was mortified by myself in more than one instance. And as I started narrating the book for audio and I was saying the things that I wrote when I was 25, 26, 27, 28,
right,
I remembered who I was then. And I remembered what my life was like and what I was struggling with. And all of a sudden, the me I am now, who did all these annotations, had this totally different picture of the me I was then. It was not judgmental. It
Wow.
was not embarrassment or shame. I felt tremendous sadness and a little, occasional flashes of pride. Like, hey man, you got through that. And I often say I'm so grateful to me of the past for surviving, so that me now gets to have all the great things I have.
Yep.
And I actually went back and re-recorded the first 20 or so pages of the book. When I got to the end of it, I said to my director, I need to do this all again, because I'm not honoring who I was when I wrote this. I'm judging who I was when I wrote this. And that's not right for the performance aspect of this.
Wow.
I just think that it's more, I think it's really important that I'm fair to who I was. And, a message that I don't think we ever really billboard in the book, but we're kind of talking about it in promo, and my editor and I have talked about it a little bit, is that, like, if we're going to move forward as people at all, if we're going to stop repeating the mistakes of the past, if we're going to break the hurtful cycles, if we're going to deliver on the promises that were made to us that went unfulfilled by our parents' generation, we have to look at the times we super fucked up, and we have to publicly apologize and publicly accept responsibility in a manner that is consistent with the public way we fucked up in the first place. We got to find a way to forgive ourselves. And if we feel awful when we look back at who we were, that's great. That is an expression of growth. That's not should not be an expression of shame, which is a thing I had to learn, because feeling ashamed of making mistakes is a thing that was drilled heavily into me by both of my parents, and then exploited by my mother to manipulate and control me.
Right.
And reading this and voicing it and saying it all and feeling it live inside of me was more healing than I ever expected. And I joked at the end of all of it, like, this was the most amazing long form therapy I've ever done. And I actually got paid for it. This is weird.
Inverse therapy. It makes me so happy to hear. And I love what is so crucial about this. What stands out is we can be all things, right? Like,
yeah.
There is so much in our world, and certainly in public spaces and Hollywood and our celebrities and whatnot, there's this tendency or this knack or this passion to just tear people down.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much lack of nuance and curiosity and softness and gray in that space that we need to find that compassion, that we need to find the empathy, that we need to find that growth. Because otherwise, if we're not bringing awareness to our past selves, past versions of ourselves, we're just going to continue repeating. We're just going to continue that cycle. We're going to continue the same mistakes that we made. And I loved the moments in the annotations in your book where you were commenting on, you were like, come on, Will, why would you say that? And of course, like, we all said stupid shit as teenagers, as 20-somethings. Like, that is the way of the world. And it's dishonest to not claim that for ourselves. So, like, I think you being so open about it and transparent about it is courageous, especially as someone who is in the spotlight like yourself.
I kind of hope, like, I just have this, like, fun, fan fiction of my life fantasy that, like, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time someone has done this kind of thing, a look back at a thing, reflecting on the changes in the writing, in the person, in the life, and all of that stuff. As far as I know, it's the first time anyone I'm aware of has looked back at something and gone, oh, buddy, come on, man. Like that, this is not, I'm not aware of any of that.
Yeah.
I'm not super famous. I'm not a big deal A-lister. This is all low stakes for me. I don't have anything to lose. I'm not going to get fired from a TV show for talking about this. I'm not going to get run off of the late night talk shows that don't want to talk to me anyway. It just doesn't matter. Maybe this kind of gives permission to people for whom it is actually risky to take a little bit of a chance and in a really meaningful way, reclaim lots of their lives in history. I was raised to believe that when you messed up, I was told you have to apologize, you have to make amends, you have to work really hard not to do it again. So that's how I apologized. What I experienced was some version of me saying, this thing hurt me, something like that. And then what I got back was some kind of deflection and distraction, a long period of silence, at which point I would say, can we still talk about this? To be responded to immediately with, I thought we'd moved past that.
Oh my God.
So what I learned from example was when you fuck up and you know it, you don't talk about it. You don't apologize for it. You just don't talk about it and hope nobody says anything. And then when someone's like, hey, remember that time you fuck up? You're like, I don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to visit it. This explains why the people who were my parents never changed.
Yep.
And just did the same things over and over and over and over again. It's that joke from The Simpsons. No, it's not me. It's the children who were wrong. And I wonder if some of that's generational. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend who's a baby boomer who is as progressive and as much of a leftist and as much of an open-minded, love everyone person as I am.
Yep.
But the boomers who raised me are shitty, toxic, right-wing Reagan conservatives. So were all the boomers I was ever around when I was a kid. And that's the generation that re-elected Reagan after they knew everything about him in an historical landslide. I don't think this is coincidental. So when my friend's like, you say this thing about boomers and it's not fair. And I'm like, listen, man, it's not true for you. You're amazing and an outlier. And I absolutely love you. But my entire experience and the experience of all of my contemporaries is that this generational trauma was 100% passed down to us. And now we've got to do something with it. And I kind of feel like we in Gen X are kind of on our way to being forgotten the way everyone in Gen Jones was forgotten, because the boomers are so fucking self-obsessed and so self-centered. So now it's boomers versus millennials. And I've been talking with other Gen Xers and I'm like, could we be like a firewall? Could we be like a reserve guard that runs in and is like, gives like supplies to the millennials and the Zoomers? And we're like, listen, we've been dealing with their bullshit for our entire lives. You are right. They are wrong. They were wrong when we were your age. They're still wrong. We got you. It's just weird to think about like, well, what is like genuinely broadly generational and what is just specific to my experience? And I just don't know, because my experience is all I've had.
That's all you got. Yeah. Yeah. I was also raised by two right-wing conservative Reagan people, also deeply evangelical. And there's in my experience, in my personal experience, there have been a lot of just narrowness in that framework. Right. And that
has been my experience.
Right. As well. And what we're talking about here is expansiveness. It's about like broadening and being curious and asking questions and using critical thinking, wherein certain frameworks don't allow for that because it's wrong or it'll disrupt the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that life is meant to be lived collaboratively with every one of our fellow
100%.
humans.
Yep.
And that capitalism forces this value of competition and zero-sum social and financial and political and emotional economics on everyone. And
fuck capitalism.
And it's just like, it's so counterintuitive and it's so against the human condition. It is at odds with thousands of years of history and civilization. And I think it is not a coincidence that we are seeing the late stages of capitalism just absolutely collapse and fail around everyone right now.
Yep.
Because it privileges the zero-sum economics of haves and have-nots over absolutely everything else. And I think it's really harmful. I think my kids are millennials. They can't afford a house because they boomers wrecked the economy. Mm-hmm. it's a giant bummer for absolutely everybody. And things are challenging for my family, and we are magnificently privileged.
Yeah.
Like we live on the peak of privilege mountain. And we still have a struggle.
Up there.
Yes, hello. Please stop looking at me. So like I have tremendous empathy and compassion and patience and love for every young person right now who's just like, I would just love to not be in debt. That's all.
Yep.
I would love to just, have that thing that my parents' generation completely took for granted.
Yep. Capitalism is a force that thrives on us not being enough, right?
Yeah.
Doing the thing. We got to achieve the thing. We got to check the box. We got to keep doing the thing because that is our worth and not our humanity, right? It's like you being an actor, that's your worth. You acting, you're doing your thing, that's your worth, and not your own humanity. Like there's something insidious about that.
So that's a really relevant observation for me, because the only way I ever felt seen or had any value at all to my mother was when I was being an actor. It is literally all she cared about.
Yep.
She never supported me in anything else. If there was a hobby I wanted to learn a musical instrument. I wanted to learn to play a sport. I wanted to go to the library. None of that mattered. None of that was supported. Had I wanted to go to acting school every day after regular school, she would have been really, really into that. And in fact, forced me to do that. And then told me it was my choice and it was what I really wanted.
Gaslighting.
And yeah, so much gaslighting.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think maybe she believes her lies. I think she told herself that lie and she has to believe it. It's the fundamental big lie. If that big lie is revealed for what it is, then she has to face the reality that she sold her kid.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I just don't think she's capable of doing that.
Yeah. That's too intense a burden to bear. Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit.
Okay.
In terms of talking about empathy and, this book's Still Just a Geek and sort of the idea of being a geek. How do you see the idea of being a geek and empathy and how those two things cross over?
So it's real interesting. The term geek comes from the sideshow world. And in the etymology and the history of it, I feel like this is fairly common knowledge, but just for anyone who doesn't know, because it's also just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Carnivals and sideshows would somehow pick up a mentally ill or chemically dependent person who was in real bad shape.
Yes, Nightmare Alley. I just saw this in
Nightmare Alley does probably the best job of recreating exactly what the experience is. Now, I know that is absolutely true because that is an era of history that I am absolutely fascinated with, particularly circuses, sideshows, and freak shows. And I have read extensively about it. I feel very confident just asserting this is true. This is a thing that happened. Mm-hmm. Someone would come in and they were so tortured and so abused and so broken down as people that their whole thing was they would just throw live birds or animals at these people when they were they do it in a pit in Nightmare Alley. Sometimes it was on a stage and the person was chained up. Sometimes it was in a cage. Yeah. And then they eat the thing. And it's awful. You are watching a person suffer. You are watching a human being reduced to just base survival instincts. Yep. That's where the word geek comes from. That person was called a geek, right? Mm-hmm. So geek was pejorative forever and ever and ever. And I love that people like me who use the term geek and nerd interchangeably, nerd also being pejorative for the longest time, that there was a group of people, maybe starting in the 60s and 70s, who were sort of the progenitors of everything I love in the world: science fiction, science, technology, literature, like all of that stuff, right? Yep. They started reclaiming nerd and reclaiming geek, and then I just came along and was like, I am not going to be embarrassed by this. We're just going to call people nerds. We're going to call people geeks. It's going to be like, we're going to do it. We're going to own it. It's going to be great. So now whenever I start my shows, I always say, hey, nerds. And occasionally I get an angry email from someone who says I'm making fun of them. And I'm like, buddy, I'm not, I promise you. Like, that's not what.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
When did that start? Like, when did you sort of start claiming that for yourself?
Probably around 15 or so years ago.
Okay.
And people who identify as geeks or nerds tend to go in a binary direction, in my experience. We become extremely empathetic, compassionate, enthusiastic, people who are inclined to share and celebrate, because that's kind of like at the heart of being a nerd. I've given a speech, and in fact, it's in Still Just a Geek, where I tell a girl, a child, listen, it's totally cool to be a nerd, because being a nerd is not about the thing you love. It's about the way you love that thing. So if there's someone who's like, you're a nerd because you love, I don't know, Sailor Moon, and that person like is absolutely crazy about Dallas Cowboys football. Guess what? You're a nerd for Sailor Moon. They're a nerd for Dallas Cowboys football. You love two different things. You love them in exactly the same way. And they just have, they don't have a ton in common. And I've been saying that for years and years and years, so that it begins to break down the societal opposition that is baked into like high school of jocks and nerds, right? Because really what it comes down to is not jocks and nerds. There are nerds who are awful. We call them incels. There are jocks who are wonderful. We call them people. Like there's just, you know, like there's just this, like, you don't need to be labeled in a negative way that limits you, right? And when I go and talk to younger people, what I am seeing more and more and more is like this weird group of friends with like some theater kids, some sports kids, a couple of homeschool kids, really popular student council kid, and they're all hanging out together. And they're just kind of like being people together. I know that cliques still exist, and I know that happens. We seek out people who are kind of like us. I get that, absolutely. This is one area where I'm just working a little bit on trying to encourage people who identify the same way that I do to find the positive, nurturing, compassionate elements of that instead of being a gatekeeper or being contrarian or any of those things that are largely born of insecurity and loneliness.
I love that. Yeah, there is so much. Like when you like a thing, right? It feels so good, and you get into it. Like I love the movie Alien, for example. Like it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I could like quote it, and you know, it's so particular in my memory, and I have I remember the moment when I first saw it, and all these things, right? And I love talking about it. And liking a thing so deeply and passionately is a beautiful way to connect to others, right? And then, right, we take that as part of our identity, which is great. We can do that, but then it can become this sort of oppositional force to something else, which when it becomes that, it can become dangerous, right? Like things like very passionate fans about like not Star Trek, but Star Wars, right? Like when Rian Johnson's Star Wars came out, there was this whole thing and people got upset about it. And
I would argue that that's not about people who love Star Wars. I would argue that that's about insecure, mediocre, generally white men.
That's what I'm saying.
Who happen to like Star Wars. Maybe being a Star Wars fan is part of their identity, but I wouldn't look at those. I wouldn't like grab that example and say like Star Trek fans are toxic. I would say there are these toxic dudes, and it's kind of incumbent on all of us to just say your toxicity is not welcome here.
And that's the point I was trying to make. Absolutely agree, right? Like we like a thing, but if we bring this insecurity, if we bring this sort of divisiveness into this, because it's truly about like, let's like this thing together. Isn't it great? Isn't that fun? Let's do that.
Yeah.
But then, it can become weird and scary and divisive, which feels hard, right?
Yeah.
When the world feels hard, right? Yeah. When we want to like our thing and, hard stuff is happening. Wars are happening in the world,
I don't know how much of this is my age.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this is the unspeakable, unimaginable trauma and horror we experienced starting with the election of 2016 that continues until today. from which we've been granted a very temporary reprieve. Just a minute, my laptop battery is dying. I don't know how much of that is of what I'm about to say is related to my age and how much is related to all of that stuff. But I have had this experience. I started this a few years ago, where things that had been unbelievably consequential and unbelievably important in comparison to things like fascism just didn't matter anymore. It's just, and someone was like,
agreed. Yeah.
Someone wanted to have like a silly, fun nerd argument, you know, like who's your favorite droid? Let's have that thing. And I was like, I don't care. I absolutely don't care. All of them. They're all great. I just don't care. I do not have it in me to do this.
Yep. I feel that. It's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need the joy and we need the silly as resistance too, but sometimes I don't have the patience or energy for it either.
Yeah.
Because of Trump, because of, white supremacy, because of et cetera, you name it. I've been thinking about this thing as I am a helper type person. I have a big heart. I'm deeply empathetic and feely and sensitive. And I feel overwhelmed at times, right? Yeah. And I have to tell myself not to shut down, right? To like keep moving the needle. Do you struggle with that? I mean, I know you're a sensitive guy and you care deeply about the world.
Yeah. We have to accept that there are things we just can't do. I'm sure you've seen the graphic with the circle, and there's the inside the circle things I can control and the outside the circle things I can't control. And I have just moved so many things outside the circle. I just put so many things and it's a choice, and it is, it's not something that happens automatically. I have to work at it, to just accept that there's a fair amount of unbelievable awful in the world. And I'm not going to change any of that. But what I can absolutely do is at a moment when any vulnerable people are being attacked or marginalized or dehumanized, I do have the privilege of using my privilege to amplify their voices and to just say, and to just say, I am a person who has your back.
Yep.
I don't know what that means for you. And I know that it means for me that if you ever see me in public and you're a marginalized, dehumanized person and you are afraid, I am one of the helpers. There are people that are just helpers that you can go to. And I've worked very, very diligently to be that person to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And to be that person, empathetic, compassionate people, we have to be aware of the times that we really need to just put our own oxygen mask on and stop trying to put the oxygen mask on literally every other person in the airplane before we even put it on ourselves.
Yep.
We have to give ourselves permission. It doesn't mean you don't care if you take some days off. It's not going to make a difference. You are not a bad person if you cannot take another news broadcast of civilians being murdered in Ukraine. It doesn't mean you don't care about it. It means that, and yes, it is a privilege that you can walk away from it. Yes, it is. You don't have to feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Be grateful for it. Care for yourself. And then when you have the spoons to do the things that will allow you to contribute in positive ways. And they don't have to be changing the world ways. They can be talking with your kids' ways.
Yep.
Your kid comes home from school and they're super upset because there's this thing going on. Why don't we do you want to make a flag together and we'll put it in the window? Great, let's do that.
Yep. I always come back to change happens in small moments, small meaningful moments, right? It's the world honors big romantic gestures, but it's really those small moments with your kid, with someone reading your book, Still Just a Geek, I think, right? It's because it's that person maybe seeing that they're not alone, right? Maybe seeing that they have hope, right? Maybe seeing that they have a safe person in this person who can listen to them or read to them, right? And that's what we can be for each other. It's beautiful.
If nothing else, I sincerely hope that people who listen to the audiobook or read the text who are unfortunately members of the same club that I'm in, whether that's the Super Happy Fun Times Brain Club, or it's the Survivor of Abuse Club, or whatever one of these clubs we don't particularly want to be in, but once you're in them, everyone else who is in that club becomes a person that you can't not see. Sometimes I just see it in people and I'm like, I recognize that. I know what that is.
Yep.
And I can tell, they don't want to talk about it. Okay, that's cool. I respect that. I got that. My train of thought left. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah, no. I mean, sometimes we just need to be present, right? Not fix, and to just listen. And that's a beautiful.
I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
In the process of doing this, I became the person that I needed in the world. And I sincerely hope that for other people who are reading this, maybe I can be that person for them in some way. It can be a small way or a big way. That's kind of, that's not a choice that I can make. And throughout this process, as I have gotten feedback from the book itself, as I've gotten feedback from people who have read some of the online writing that is already published, that is part of the book, whenever someone says to me, oh my goodness, I felt so seen by this. I felt so supported by this. I feel supported back. Mm-hmm. I feel it like one of the greatest things in this process thus far has been talking to people who have told me, I thought I was the only one, or I shared this experience and I shared your sense of shame. And, thanks for giving me permission to not feel that. It just makes me feel like, good, I'm not alone. And that is really important in my healing, because the two people who you want your parents to love you and validate you and be proud of you and support you and all that. My mom lies about everything, and my dad just doesn't care and never did.
Yep.
And both of those things suck. They suck so much.
Major suckage.
They really suck. And I tell people, people are like, well, why can't you try to reconcile with your parents? I'm like, okay, that's like telling a depressed person, and you just tried to cheer up. Oh, thanks. I never tried that. I really appreciate it.
Just point your feet in the direction of happiness.
Exactly. Do you have any other, do you want to get me a live, laugh, love thing that I can hang up on the wall just to remind myself of that?
I think you miss live, laugh, love, espresso, Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I hear from other people, this was helpful for me, this was relevant to me, I feel complicated emotions. I feel sadness for that person. I feel gratitude and validation for myself. Mm-hmm. And I feel relief that here's another person who got what I hoped a reader would get out of this.
That's empathy. That's it. I mean, magical. I know you don't have much more time, but I did need to say, I don't know what your relationship to The Secret of NIMH is, but it's just a movie that is in my heart forever. I have a signed copy of it. Don Bluth signed it, and it's
wow.
Have you seen that movie in a while?
I have, actually. I can't remember why. I know I showed it to my kids when they were little.
It's dark.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a screening of it at the New Beverly Theater in Hollywood. This is a theater down in Hollywood that Quentin Tarantino owns and finances. Yep. And they run classic films in 35 millimeter every day of the week. And it's a different film every day. And for a few of the films, they have people associated with the film come in and do a little talk. And they invited me to come in and do a little talk about The Secret of NIMH.
Oh,
that would
amazing.
have been probably 15 or 18 years ago.
Wow.
And it was the first time I'd seen it since it had come out. And I just loved it. I think it's a gorgeous movie. I think it holds up very well. I think it honors the source material in probably the best way that is possible in 1982.
Yeah.
I think it holds up in a way that parents can still experience it with their children. I think it's a great excuse to give your kid inspiration to read the novel that a movie was based on, because the novel is really great, and Robert O'Brien's a great author. But I loved that movie. I really loved that movie a lot. And what an interesting experience it was. I wish that I remembered more of it.
Yeah.
When that happened, I was either 8 or 9 when I did all the recording for it. And the movie didn't come out for like 2 years after I recorded it. So I recorded it in like 79 or 1980 or something like that. It's one of the last times I remember really having fun as a kid doing work.
Yeah.
A lot of that time of my life is deeply traumatic and painful to remember. But that particular job was just so much fun. I remember being in the booth with Dom DeLuise. Well, it wasn't a booth, it was a stage. It was a full soundproofed stage. That was weird for me.
Oh, that's weird.
Walking into this cavernous room that was dead silent because it was so soundproofed. I'd never experienced that before. It felt like being in some weird kind of dream. But it was me and Shannon Doherty, who was like I think she's a couple of years older than me, and Dom DeLuise in the booth together.
Wow.
Just doing this scene where we tie Jeremy the Crow up. And he was improvising and tickling us and laughing with us. And I have since become, just by weird coincidence, over the years, I became friends with both of his kids.
Wow.
Well, I don't know Peter very well, but Michael and David, I knew really well. David, I know very well.
Very cool.
It was really neat. I'm really grateful that I got to have that experience with that deeply kind man at that moment in my life.
That's wonderful. Happy to hear it. All right. So we always wrap up the show, Will, talking about an empathy hero in our lives. So it could be a character from a story. It could be a character from a film we love, or someone in real life. I will go first to give you a moment to reflect on yours.
Okay.
My empathy heroes this week are my launch team for my new journal that I'm putting out. It's called Dear Childhood Me, actually. It's a sort of love letters to your inner child. It's a journal I'm launching with Feely Human April 4th. By the time this episode comes out, it will be out. So go get it, people, at dearchildhoodme.com. But anyways, I wanted to shout out the lovely folks in the Feely Human community who are supporting my work. It's hard and stressful, and it's just me. And so I see you, and I appreciate you, and I love you. You're my empathy heroes, so thank you. How about you, Will?
3 people come to mind immediately. My great Aunt Val.
Yes. I know Aunt Val. I mean, you mentioned Aunt Val in the book.
She loved us, all of us, unconditionally. I know what it feels like to be enough, because she made clear to me that I was enough for her. It is because of how loved and how cared for and how safe and how supported I felt with her that I was really aware of how conditional it was with my mom and how absent it was with my dad. She got me through simply by existing and loving me and giving me a place to be. We never talked about it. I presume she saw what was going on. But she was amazing and wonderful. My entire Star Trek cast family, all 9 of them, but particularly specifically, Frakes and Marina. Frakes and Marina just, in ways I was completely unaware of at the time, but are so like spotlighted in my memory, were always there for me, without me needing to go to them. I felt loved and supported by everyone on the cast, we're all extraordinarily close now. When I told them that I had stopped having any contact with my parents, they all said, "We will be your family." Gates is my space mom. When I need a mom, I text my space mom, and she shows up for me every single time. I love them and I cherish them. I, over the last year or so, individually spoke to each of them and had an opportunity to tell them the truth about what I was experiencing as a kid. Own the regret I have for the times I behaved in ways that I find embarrassing and immature, with the understanding that that behavior was all a consequence of my trauma and not a consequence of me being a dick on purpose. It was just reactive, like we have to let kids, we got to be. I just think about the two times I did some dumb thing as a kid that my dad and my brother never let me forget and always beat up on me about, when I was well into my 30s, Jesus. And there comes a point where I'm just like, can we just fucking let it go? Yeah. I was 9. Can we just let it go? I don't know why we have to keep redoing this. Right. Yeah. They were always there for me. And when I told them that I had hidden everything from everyone and that I loved them and felt safe around them and felt like a person around them instead of like Debbie's thing, which is what I felt like at home. Every one of them said some version of, "You were lovely. None of that was your fault. I didn't know that you were experiencing that at home, and I'm so sorry, but I loved you then and I love you now." And they have become my family.
It's amazing. So grateful to hear that.
And then, if you read through all of Still Just a Geek, you can see that there is a moment in my life where I'm ready to just tell Star Trek to get fucked and walk away from it forever for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
For reasons that I would regret forever and ever and ever and ever. And I wouldn't have what I have now had I done that. And it's one of those moments where it's just like, wow, I'm really grateful I turned left instead of right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So your Star Trek family, Aunt Val, you said there was 3?
3 people. Well, yeah, so 3 people. My Star Trek family is a unit. Frakes and Marina specifically.
Okay, gotcha.
And Aunt Val. And of course, my wife.
Yeah.
Of course, my wife, Anne, is my absolute best friend in the world, my partner in absolutely everything. I grew up with parents who screamed and yelled and fought and kicked things and slammed doors and just seemed to not have a positive relationship that was based on lifting one another up. It seemed to be a constant power struggle. I knew really young, that's not what I want in my adult life. And it was weird to be, when Ann and I were dating 20 years ago, it was weird to be just unconditionally accepted and to feel like I was absolutely enough for a person I loved, because I didn't get a whole lot of that. She is still that person and will always be that person. Anne holds everything together.
I'm so grateful you have Anne and you had Aunt Val and you have Star Trek. So when I first met my wife, Jessica, I was a fucking mess. I was a drunk. I needed therapy, but had undiagnosed depression.
Yeah.
All of those things, right? And I remember the first time I sat down for Thanksgiving at her parents' house, and they went around the table and talked about what they were grateful for and what they were thankful for. And they were talking about the most lovely things. And it just, when it got to me, I just broke down and cried because I was like, this is what I was missing. This is what the world needs. This is what we all deserve. It's what you deserve, Will. It's what I deserve. It's what everyone listening deserves.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful you're there now and you're not alone. and you are enough, and you have Anne, and you have your kids, and you have Star Trek, and you have this book, which is beautiful. And I want to tell the listeners to go out and buy it. It's out tomorrow as of this recording. You can buy it through bookshop.org. It supports your local bookstore. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. You can buy it. Where else can you buy it, Will?
You can get it everywhere books are sold. People always ask me, what's the best way to do this? So like it benefits you the most. And the answer to that is it absolutely doesn't matter. I've already been paid for this. I know I'm not going to earn out the advance. Don't worry about it. Get it where it's easiest for you. My preference, if someone's like, no, I really want to know. My preference is go to an indie shop just because they need your support. They always do. And then my second preference is actually grab the audio. The audio is extremely special. The audio is very much the listener and me having a conversation while I read my old book and then occasionally look up from it to say, let me tell you something about this. Mm-hmm. And because so much healing occurred in the process of writing it, I had thoughts that did not occur to me as I was footnoting the original manuscript. And I had permission from the publisher to like add those footnotes as kind of like improvised on the fly. Hey, here's what's in my head. Footnotes, just extra comments. And there's a fair amount of them. Yeah. That I think are pretty cool. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to add that additional context and those additional observations.
Would your editor think they're cool though?
He would. That's a great joke. I love that. People who read the book are going to be like, wow, that was an unbelievably clever reference. I love it. Thank you. It's terrific. He might have some things to say about it, and I would probably tell him to get bent.
Well, listeners, definitely get the audio book. I think it's on cassette tape. Is that right, Will?
I hope so. It's available on cassette or 8-track. You can also get it as a subscription vinyl record service. 145 record will be delivered to you every month for the next 73 months. You can cancel at any time.
I love it. I love it. Where else can the listeners out there connect with you, Will?
I am at wilwheaton.net. That is my blog. I am in the world of social media. I have a Facebook page, and I have an Instagram account. They are both It's Wil Wheaton. I was extremely active on Twitter for a very long time. I am no longer. I think Twitter is, on balance, bad for the world, bad for humanity, extremely bad for people with mental health issues. Getting Twitter out of my life vastly improved every aspect of it. So I'm not there anymore. I know Facebook is just as bad, but my ability to curate the people who show up, my ability to put a bouncer at the door that was taken away by design on Twitter does not exist at Facebook and Instagram, and it certainly doesn't exist at my blog. So those are my primary social media places. But I would tell anybody who's really interested and they just want to remember one thing: wilwheaton.net, and that is your official online hub for all things Wil Wheaton.
Amazing. Well, Will, this has been such a pleasure. I so appreciate you and your heart, and grateful for your book.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the conversation tremendously.
Likewise. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy.
La, la, la.